So in this segment, we're going to be discussing how Elon Musk has effectively beaten Keir Starmer and the Labour Party over grooming gangs, despite being factually wrong. So you can see from this article here, the majority of Labour voters oppose Starmer on grooming gangs inquiry. Poll find. So this is a poll about the voters, actually Labour voters, wanting another inquiry into the grooming gang scandal, despite the fact that there was already one a few years ago and those recommendations have not been implemented. Elon Musk being fundamentally wrong in what he's saying here, but despite this, he has amplified this story along with parts of the media and other politicians who elevate the story to the point where even the voters think that Starmer is wrong. So 2/3 of voters are at odds with Starmer, 2/3 of Labour voters even. That's just not even general voters, Labour voters. The Prime Minister rejected calls from Elon Musk for a new inquiry after condemning the billionaire's onslaught of social media attacks as lies and misinformation, as allies of the world's richest man claimed he was seeking a way to remove Starmer from power. And there's a rumour that Dominic Cummings is involved in this, and that could be true. As the row throws the scandal into the spotlight, Sir Keir's party itself appears split over whether to hold a new inquiry. That's something we'll discuss, actually. And you've got here, Andy Burnham says he favours a limited national inquiry, despite that being a bad idea because you're re-traumatising victims, because they're going to have to go back through all of this again. This is how cutting the story is, that Andy Burnham, a guy who claims he was a lead on dealing with the grooming gangs at the time, is now calling for a limited national inquiry, which is a joke. But the reason he's doing this is because he doesn't want to be tarred with the brush of protecting PDF files, which then we'll discuss towards the end of the video. So here we've got a fact check by the great Ross Atkins at the BBC, one of the rare good journalists there.
Elon Musk has had a lot to say about the grooming gang scandal. This is his number of posts on the UK and grooming gangs. It's increased sharply in recent weeks. And on Monday, without naming Musk, Sir Keir Starmer attacked those spreading lies and misinformation on the response to the grooming gangs. We've analysed Musk.
I think it was a misplay from Starmer not to mention Musk. I think Labour should have directly attacked this and talked about Starmer's record at the CPS properly and dispelled it completely and say, look, if he wants to spread lies and misinformation, well, that's on him. But the truth of the matter is this.
Timeline on that same day, Monday the 6th, from midnight to midnight GMT. There were 153 posts. This includes those written by Musk and those by others that he shared. 33% of them were on US politics, 48% on the UK, and nearly all of them about grooming gangs. And these posts contain a range of false information. At 8:12 on Monday morning, Musk posted that former Prime Minister Gordon Brown sold those little girls for votes. Later he posted Starmer was deeply complicit in the mass rapes in exchange for votes, a reference to when Sir Keir Starmer led the Crown prosecution.
And saying that's what the inquiry would show, despite the fact that we had an inquiry and it didn't show that, so this is nonsense.
Service. There is no evidence that Gordon Brown or Keir Starmer sought to obstruct justice for political gain or for any other reason. At 12:45 on Monday, Musk shared this screenshot. It says, here is a list of MPs who voted against deporting rapists. He calls this unconscionable. But this has nothing to do with a vote. It's a letter signed by a group of MPs in 2020 about the planned deportation of 50 Jamaican nationals who'd received sentences for various crimes, in some cases for rape or sexual offences. The MPs wanted a postponement until a report on the Windrush scandal had been published. There were concerns about the deportation of foreign-born offenders who came to the UK as children. Later on Monday afternoon, Musk made reference to that time Starmer called Donald Trump a racist. We can't find any evidence Starmer has ever called Trump a racist. Those are 4 examples. We could have included others, and Musk has continued to post about the UK. This is Andrew McIntyre. On Monday, he was jailed for his role in the summer riots. Musk shared a post on this, adding, over 7 years prison for social media posts. Whoever gave that sentence deserves prison themselves. This is misleading. McIntyre's social media posts include calls to attack Muslims, Jews and non-whites. He set up a Telegram group that was used to organise the Southport riot and share multiple other targets for rioters. When detained, he was carrying a knife. When his home was searched, weapons and a copy of Hitler's Mein Kampf were found. It's not 7 years for social media posts. It's 7 years for encouraging violent disorder and criminal damage, and for possession of a knife in a public place. On Monday, responding to a post about the group,
These are the same people who'd probably say anyone caught with a knife should be immediately put in jail, not Musk, because he believes in guns. But there's a lot of people in the UK who believe that if you're caught with a knife, you should be put in jail. And so this guy was, and now that's a problem.
Gang scandal, Musk wrote, utterly unacceptable. No one disagrees with that. But Musk is amplifying a slew of incorrect and misleading information. His concern about the subject doesn't extend to being truthful when addressing it.
So I think Starmer got a lot of credit for his response, but I don't think it was as strong as it should have been.
On Twitter, but you asked me a really
as strong as it could have been, even, because I don't think it's anywhere near like, I think he should have named him in this interview, but I think there's a reason why, and we'll explain that in a little bit.
Important question that's been in the news for the last few days. I am going to, with permission, just answer it quite fully because it is a really important set of issues. And let me start with this. Child sexual exploitation is utterly sickening, utterly sickening. And for many, many years, too many victims have been completely let down by perverse ideas about community relations, or by the idea that institutions must be protected above all else. And they've not been listened to, and they've not been heard. And when I was chief prosecutor for 5 years, I tackled that head on, because I could see what was happening. And that's why I reopened cases that had been closed and supposedly finished. I brought the first major prosecution of an Asian grooming gang. In the particular case, it was in Rochdale, but it was the first of its kind. There were many that then followed that format.
This is what Labour should have done from the start. They should have gone on full court press and just pushed this point that he did change the game when it came to prosecutions. As head of the CPS, this is the angle that Labour should have gone straight on offence and mentioned why Elon Musk was wrong. But they haven't really done that, and they kind of let Labour seem to have this really stupid ability to really let the opposition, whoever it may be, steal a march on them when it comes to narrative. You know, I think I've heard Reeves and Starmer talk about they're not here to do running commentary on things. Is that cool? You let your opponents fill the vacuum when it comes to a narrative, when it comes to a story, and then you're always playing catch up, because that's all you're doing, because you don't want to address things because you're scared you'll say the wrong thing. That's the one thing I've noticed with some of these front benchers. They're scared to say something wrong, so they don't say anything at all, and ultimately they lose because of it. Elon Musk has stolen a massive march on these guys. Same thing with Reform and Kemi Badenoch. They've stolen a huge march on the Labour Party because they refuse to act and kill these stories off in the first place.
I changed the whole prosecution approach because I wanted to challenge, and did challenge, the myths and stereotypes that were stopping those victims being heard. So we changed the entire approach, not without criticism at the time, I might add. And when I left office, we had the highest number of child sexual abuse cases being prosecuted on record. Now, that record is not secret. As a public servant, it's there for all of you or everybody to see.
But one of the things that these idiots need to realise is people aren't going to go on Google and research stuff. People are lazy. You have to do it for them. You have to keep going in the media. You have to go on the press rounds and keep reminding people of this. That's one of the things I'll give credit to Bridget Phillipson for. She absolutely battered the Tories over these specific things. Is something I'll do in a different video. But Labour need to understand, like, you are either in control of the narrative or you are the narrative. And that's what they don't seem to understand. It's driving me nuts. There's more stuff here. You can watch this in your own time. I'll link it below. Mujtaba Rahman talking about how Starmer's intervention just now is incredibly important. It shows the government has decided it can't ignore the threat Musk poses, has taken the view that a line has been crossed. The problem is, though, they need to mention him by name. Like, they can't just be like, oh yeah, the media brought him up, I'll discuss this. Nah, they've got to mention him specifically and talk about how he's spreading misinformation. But I think the reason why they don't mention him is because they're scared he's going to start talking to Trump and cause a trade war, when if Trump was going to do a trade war, he'd do it anyways. It won't be Elon Musk that causes it. That's the reason why they don't want to offend Elon Musk and kind of push back on him too much, but they don't get that it's causing them lots of problems. We're in a situation where you've got Labour MPs kind of rebelling, talking about this is the first Labour MP calling for an inquiry, a national inquiry into the grooming gangs again. You know, you have Andy Burnham, who's a senior mayor. You know, is a big Labour figure. He's a big figure, I think, in British politics. A lot bigger than certain cabinet ministers. A lot of people know who Andy Burnham is. Now you've got an MP, a backbencher, calling for an inquiry into the grooming gangs, urging Starmer to use the full power of the state to deliver justice. Even though I think for the most part, haven't we gotten justice on this issue? I don't know if if anyone's the contrary, then please let me know in the comments. But this we've had a national inquiry. People have been prosecuted. I don't know if all they're not going to get all of the criminals here, but they'll get a ton of them, or as many as they can. Speaking to his local paper, the Liverpool Echo, Mr. Carden said, "The public compassion for the victims, thousands of young British working-class girls and children, is real. The public call for justice must be heeded." And so it's interesting he's talking to his local paper here. So this is an obvious ploy to his constituents. He's talking about it is shocking that people in positions of power could have covered up and refused to act to avoid confronting racial slurs or racial or cultural issues, or because victims were poor and working class. We must question and challenge the orthodoxy of progressive liberal multiculturalism. So this guy just sounds like a Reform UK guy at this point. We need a new doctrine to take our multi-ethnic society into the future. But okay, but for me personally, I think the reason why the police didn't bother to investigate these grooming gangs, the same reason they don't bother investigating lots of different grooming stories, because they don't care about the victims. They don't care about white working class, not even just white working class victims in general. The town I live in the town centre, there was like a little statue where you had people who were adults, grown men, dating girls. And there's lots of stories of girls, not even dating, it'd be abuse. It'd be SA and things like that, of girls that are much younger, below the age of consent. And that's normal in some places. And I'm not talking about like Asian men doing it, just Asian men doing it. I'm talking about like, people from different races doing it as well. It's seen as normal by some. So like, especially back then, back in the early 2000s, these people are sick. They're PDF files. But one of the reasons why the police don't care about certain kinds of victims. That's one of the things we need to understand here. And I don't think they didn't investigate the Asian grooming gangs because they were Asian or because of cultural differences or whatever. They didn't do it because the police suck. Sometimes they're just awful. They don't care. This is the one of the guys who was kind of in charge of dealing with the grooming gangs here, Nazir Afzal.
There are people who are experts based on 15 minutes of Googling, and there are people who've actually been doing these cases for 15 years. And for some reason, the 15 minutes of Google is more important and more real than my own experience. There is no doubt in my mind, we're talking about political expediency, we're talking about the exploiting of these terrible crimes for political purposes. And I think it's not mainly public knowledge, but the last few days, James, I've had victims of these abuses ring me up, contact me, reach out to me to tell me that they've been re-traumatized over the last few days. They thought that they were getting better. They've thought that they've reconstructed their lives after the abuse that they terribly suffered 10, 15 years ago. And yet, because of the fact that there's been this regular misinformation and attention in the media and Parliament, everywhere else, they're reliving their experiences. They're losing sleep. They've got no services to go to. They're not getting any help. And some of them are contemplating self-harm.
So they got, the quote up here, victims being re-traumatized, like you said, contemplating self-harm. That's it. There's a reason why. Look, you can't just have the Tory trick of just having constant inquiries. They can't talk about things. It doesn't work. You don't fix things. If the previous inquiry was not good enough, then questions need to be asked of why the Tories put through a botched inquiry. That's the question they need to start asking. And if the inquiry was good enough, we need to ask ourselves how come the recommendations have not been implemented yet. Why was it the Tories that didn't bother to actually get anything done in this regard? It's up to Labour to actually, push through the recommendations within the inquiry. And, we've got these posters being made about Labour MPs now, which, okay, it's not a big surprise considering Labour did it first. And I said at the time these posters were bad, and there were people who defended these posters. There were people who defended the posters that they made about Rishi Sunak defending PDF files, and now you've got posters saying, do you think there should be an inquiry into grooming gangs? Jess Phillips doesn't. They just voted against a full national inquiry into the gangs grooming scandal. Labour won't stand up to dangerous child abusers, which again is ironic coming from the Conservative Party, because in reality, and I'll cover this in another video, the party that protected PDF files is the Conservative Party. Because the fact they backlogged and damaged the court system so much, they hollowed out the police. That's why. You know, if you wanted a system where PDF files were dealt with, right, you would have a strong judicial system that can deal with court cases quickly, and you'd have a police force that is well staffed and they can deal with this stuff, and also a CPS as well, things, access to legal aid, and things like that, so people can actually get help. That's what you would do. It's a complete joke, to be honest. The Labour left themselves wide open to make these sorts of posters, and you know, there's going to be tons of these floating around all over social media now for a while. You know, the one they made about Rishi Sunak is Labour saying that's the one they got the most engagement off, and the Tories are definitely going to run with this. You know, why they picked a more hamster-looking Starmer, I don't know. And you know, there's a rumor that Elon Musk is working with Dominic Cummings to sabotage the UK. This feels like a thing Dominic Cummings would have pulled out. You know, as in a kind of thing that he would have given Elon Musk information on, because it just come out of nowhere. Really, he just started tweeting about it, and I don't know why. I don't know what kind of triggered him, in that sense. Felt like a coordinated effort, but yeah, these posters are gnarly. I said that when they released the one on Rishi Sunak, and I'm saying that again now. But you know, Labour can't play victim on these posters because they started that nonsense. Yeah, you can't start firing at people and then play victim and people fire back at you. But I think this whole conversation could get a lot more toxic. I'm not sure quite where it ends, but I think Elon Musk has actually won because, as I said, you know, you've got a Labour MP here basically crumbling over this. You've got Andy Burnham crumbling over this. And it will continue for as long as Elon Musk keeps tweeting about this, and as long as the media keep giving it oxygen, it will keep going. And so fundamentally, Elon Musk won because he's convinced voters that this has been a major problem and it's not being dealt with. And Reform UK are going to be the big winners over this. What the Conservative Party don't realise is all anyone has to do is ask, how come you never dealt with it? And that's it. Instant win. And that's going to be a separate video about the Conservative Party face planting over the grooming gang stuff, which is something worth subscribing for, no doubt. But anyways, I'm going to leave it there. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Like, comment, share, subscribe. Support the channel on Patreon if you can, and hopefully I'll see you in the next one.